So folks, we're back for the final Great Dark Beyond card review. All of the cards have been revealed, including this really crazy Paladin Legendary over here. And we're doing things a little differently today on the website here on the card library instead of my nice little prepared slides. I didn't have time to make those because, as many of you will have seen in yesterday's video, I was dealing with the what I'm calling the ad blockade. I'm not going to recap everything here. Go check out yesterday's video if you're curious. But basically, for the last week, this channel was not being monetized, which definitely interrupted my process. Took a little break on reviews. If you haven't seen reviews for the last few days, that's why. On that note, I think I might have good news, though. It looks like ads are showing up once again. Seems like they're fully aware of the problem and working on it and so on. So I am tentatively hopeful that we might actually be fine. You might have actually seen ads on this video. I guess let me know in the comments below. That would be helpful to know. And assuming everything's working, I think we'll do some theory crafting videos and expansion videos, which I was afraid wasn't going to happen because this wouldn't be fixed in time. So again, I can't be 100% sure, but right now all signs are pointing towards we're back and we're back in action. So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about all these new Paladin cards to kick things off here with Lumia. This is a big old 6 mana 9/9 with lifesteal, and after hero takes damage, they become immune for the rest of the turn. Which, dude, this is kind of crazy. Number one, this is just a 9/9 for 6 mana with lifesteal. Like, that alone makes this card kind of intriguing, I think. It's just so big. And, you know, there are various ways, you know, to give cards rush and so on. So that might just be relevant in its own case sometimes. But this effect, after hero takes damage, they become immune for the rest of the turn. This is a really neat answer against, I think, wide board aggro decks in particular. You know, they have 4 or 5 pirates down. They're all hitting for like 2 or 3 damage. You're at 10 health. Normally, you're like, I'm screwed. I can't deal with all of this pressure. You slam down a Lumia, they can only hit you for 2 or 3 because as soon as that first attack goes through, they don't get to do any more damage. They suddenly have to solve the Lumia problem if they want to kill you. And very often, solving the Lumia problem will mean healing you for like 27 health because they have to run into this 3 times or something in order to kill it with that same board of 3 attack stuff. So as long as your health is sufficiently high to survive their highest individual point of damage, they have to then shift their focus into the Lumia. And that means a lot of decks just won't have the hard removal tool necessary to deal with this. Because, like, you know, yes, there are assassinate style effects that would just clean this up easily, not typically run by many aggro decks. And, you know, a lot of the times, like, threats like this, taunt stuff is pushed through with like little chip damage that, you know, like a little spell that sometimes goes face, sometimes clears up a taunt. They might use rush minions to push through this. None of that's gonna really be all that effective at stopping the Lumia. Like, the damage angle could get close, but 9 health is so much that most of the time they just won't have a spell singularly large enough to deal with Lumia. They're gonna need minion damage probably in order to deal with the Lumia problem. If they ignore the Lumia problem, you just get to hit for 9 and heal, maybe even more with buffs, have more time to stabilize, and so on. So this just creates this like incredibly decisive moment where it's make or break for the deck trying to deal with the Lumia problem. And I think that's going to make this very good and very relevant. Like, yes, there will be matchups like control decks or whatever where nobody cares. Like, oh, okay, you played a Lumia, I'll just remove it with my removal spell. No big deal, right? That's fine. It's just still kind of a big body. It's just a threat in a way in those instances, although not exactly a threat, because remember, this is a symmetrical effect. Sometimes this might actually make it hard to kill your opponent, although this is at least 9 attack. You can swing in for 9. That might be the necessary amount of damage in some cases. But, you know, basically just a thing, a throwaway piece of the puzzle for, you know, control matchups. But against those aggro decks, minion-based ones in particular, without a ton of, like, over-the-top reach or burst damage, well, even if they have a ton, without big numerical value reach and over-the-top damage that's, like, you know, hitting for big numbers, this still probably creates a lot of problems for the opponent where they just kind of get locked out of the game. So I do think this will be worth running. I even think you could run this in something like a hand buff Paladin, as we see hand buff Paladin today. If they can afford a few big minions like this, imagine like buffing this thing up to a crazy stat total even bigger than 9/9, right? So I actually think this card just looks insanely good, especially in modern Hearthstone metas. And I think 6 mana is right on the threshold, for the record, of being too late, but I don't think it is. If this was a 7 mana card, I'd be like, man, I don't know. 6 mana though, I think it gets there just in time, especially, you know, with coins sometimes getting it down on 5. Like, that's probably the sweet spot, as long as you did a few other things to try to stabilize in that early game period. So in other words, I like this card a lot. Now, moving on to the other Paladin stuff, we're getting the return of Librams. Librams are back, and we'll just take a look at all these Librams real quick as an entire package. Libram of Faith, 6 mana spell. Summon 3/3 Draenei with Divine Shield. If this costs 0, give them Rush. That requires 6 total Libram discounts. Kind of insane. Interstellar Researcher, 2 mana 2/2 Draenei. Battlecry and Spellburst draw a Libram. So that's like a ton of potential draw. And I like that this has the kind of floor on it of, like, worst case, you don't have a spell, you want to play this on 2. You're probably not even mad. Slam it as a Battlecry. But then in the late game, particularly with discounted Librams, you know, you get 2 for 1 out of this with that spell burst. That's pretty nice. We've got Yarel, Beacon of Hope, the legendary here. 5 mana 4/3 Draenei with Rush and Death Rattle. Get 3 different Librams from an older timeline. Now, specifically, there is one missing, the big, like, corrupt weapon, but you've got Libram of Justice, Libram of Hope, and Libram of Wisdom. Basically the ones from Ashes of Outland, but not the one from the mini set. I think they didn't want to introduce corrupt as a keyword, you know, as a one-off keyword in the entire year. So she will always give you these 3, which, you know, these were the ones we kind of knew and loved the most anyway. Libram of Wisdom, probably the most compelling, but Libram of Justice, I mean, they're all actually pretty good still. I think they actually hold up really well even to today. So 3 really nice Librams generated there. We've got Libram of Divinity, 4 mana, holy spell, give a minion +3/+3. If this costs 0, return this to your hand at the end of your turn. So not quite like Wisdom, where you can do crazy pop-off, like chaining it all together in one turn, like buff something, trade it in, buff something, trade it in, buff something, go face or whatever. Libram of Wisdom allowed more of those chains, but because this is come back end of turn, not immediately. So, but bigger, you know, the +3/+3 is a significantly different buff when we compare it to, you know, Libram of Wisdom. And then we've got Libram of Clarity. Draw 2 minions. If this costs 0, give them +2/+1. So pretty good base draw, honestly. Just finding minions in a deck with potentially a lot of spells might help you find the Draenei enablers that you need. And then for the discount side of things, we got Interstellar Wayfarer, 4 mana 4/2 Draenei, Divine Shield, Battlecry. Reduce the cost of your Librams by 1 this game. So, you know, just Divine Shield body there. And then the Interstellar Star Slicer, which is really hard to say, but looks pretty cool. 3 mana 2/3 Battlecry and Death Rattle. Reduce the cost of your Librams by 1 this game. So notably, like, if you play this on turn 3, you know, you attack on 3, 4, it's active on turn 5. So there is this kind of perfect curve almost of, like, you know, 2-drop to draw a Libram, 3-drop Slicer, 4-drop Wayfarer to discount. Your Librams have already been discounted by 2, which is not relevant for any of the new ones yet. But then you play Yarel on turn 5. She gives you Libram of Wisdom, which will now be free. You attack again with the Interstellar Star Slicer. That makes the Libram of Clarity free, because that's now 3 discounts, right? And you're kind of set up on turn 6 with, like, you know, a playable Libram of Hope if you need it. You know, Libram of Justice is really cheap to take a swing, and then from there you're kind of off to the races. So how often do you hit that exact sequence? And, you know, sometimes it won't be Yarel, but like Libram of Faith, getting, you know, pretty cheap in the mid game. In theory, you know, playing this for like 4 or 5 mana on turn 5 or 6 or something could create some moments, but it's gonna be really hard to get this actually down to 0. Like, both Interstellar Star Slicers have to be fully played and fully attacked out to get 4 discounts, and then both Interstellar Wayfarers get you to the next 2 for that 6 cost discount. So, you know, you don't really expect this to ever be 0, which does make this one a little awkward to me. Like, I don't hate a 3 mana spell that says summon 3/3s with Divine Shield by any means, right? That's pretty great. but it might be hard to play sometimes without that kind of interactivity. And if you actually look at the new Librams in particular, they're not very reactive. They're like a buff, card draw, and a board that's probably really hard to give rush. So in some ways, it feels like this has to be played from ahead. Like you don't really necessarily want to play this from behind. Yrel helps that a little bit. She's got rush, and these are the Librams you play from behind. But Yrel's a one-of legendary, right? You can't necessarily rely on Yrel to fill in the gap. So does like a Draenei package come in and support this and give you that kind of early game you need? Could definitely be a possibility. Keep in mind too, like, you know, these battle cries and divine shield, or excuse me, death rattles, these do interact with Velen. We saw Velen will replay you know, your various death rattles and battle cries, so you get more discounts. That's an easier way to get Libram down. So that can all happen, but you know, you're again pushing towards turn 7, turn 8, where these kind of big moments kind of happen and start to swing the game. So will that be too slow or too late? Especially because like Star Slicer, not great at interacting with the board on turn 3. If this was a 3-2, this weapon would be way better because you'd get it done faster and you'd be able to keep up on board almost. More importantly, the 2 attack is not always compelling on turn 3. This guy is just kind of a dead body as well, just sitting there for a minute. So I'm worried about how quickly this comes online and how much setup it requires to come online. Sometimes it's okay for cards to come online late, you know, 6, 7, 8, if you didn't have to do a lot to get there. You got to do a lot to get there, which is a conversation we're going to have again in regards to starships, because I'm still kind of worried a little bit about starships. Oh, one other thing I did want to talk about is that the Librams are holy spells, and we do still have this kind of small holy spell package available in Paladin, which this is not actually one of them. But like, you know, holy glow sticks, holy cowboys, kind of nice, right? Like it discounts your Librams. This kind of helps you recover some tempo, maybe. This draws some. It sort of helps, but I do not think is it enough right now to make this compelling on its own. So I'm just a tad worried about the Libram package. Like very excited because I love the Librams. I just thought they were really cool last time around. Just concerned about it getting online. Now, moving on over to this new aura, we got Celestial Aura, 6 mana spell, holy. It's an aura, of course. While you have exactly 1 minion in play, its attack and health are 10, and this lasts for 3 turns. Now, I don't know exactly how this is going to work, because there's some weirdness about it. Like, auras make me think it's just always 10-10, and like, theoretically, like, even if you attack into it, if this is just constantly updating, it should still just be a 10-10. So I don't think that's how it'll work. That just wouldn't make sense with like taunts and stuff. You could just literally never attack through a taunt. It would never take damage. So, you know, it basically, as soon as that becomes the lone minion on board, it will probably set its stats to 10-10. Any damage it then takes will be permanent damage. I'm a little bit curious what happens if like you play a new minion, right? You no longer have exactly 1 minion in play. That gets small again. Right, like, so let's say it was a 10-10, 5 damage. It takes 5 damage. It's a 10-5. You play a new minion, it goes back to a 1-1 because it was a Silverhand recruit, right? Now you have 2 Silverhand recruits. One of those dies. Does it go back to 10-10 or does it go back to 10-5? Like, does it remember the damage that it took, or does it reset? Can you use this to kind of like heal it or whatever? Ultimately, I don't know how that's going to function, but I just don't know how this card's going to be great. I think it's going to be kind of clunky and awkward. 6 mana is a lot to commit to this. It might be really hard to set up good moments. You know, it is a consideration for like rush and taunt and lifesteal. There's obviously keywords that can use those bonus stats in a pretty compelling way, but I just don't know which deck's going to really commit to this, how often it's going to line up. I just have a lot of big questions around getting this to kind of work in practice. And then our final Paladin spell here is Orbital Satellite, 1 mana spell. Discover a Draenei. If you played an adjacent card this turn, discover another, which I think is actually pretty solid right now because we just don't have a ton of Draenei, and there are some, you know, potentially pretty big hits, both in Paladin, if you're playing like Draenei Librams or whatever. Neutral has, of course, big stuff like the Velen that can be great, and it might just all be synergistic for a Draenei committed deck. If you get 2 out of this for 1 mana, that's especially cool, right? And since this is such a flexible 1 mana spell, it might not be hard to weave this in, you know, just like, oh, okay, I played the adjacent card. Let's weave this in this turn. We got 1 mana to spare. it's not much, and I'm generating like a ton of value and potentially some key cards like Urel. So I actually think this is a pretty nice payoff for only a 1 mana card. So all in all, Paladin, I think Lumia's pretty nuts. I'm really excited about Librams, but I feel like they're not quite there yet. I wish there was a reliable reactive Libram card, maybe the kind of thing that comes along in the mini set to add some more support to this, but I think it has a gap there right now. So moving on over to Shaman here, we got some cool stuff to talk about, including this cool legendary Murmur. Big ol' 6 mana 6/6 elemental. Your battlecry minions cost 1, but immediately die after being played. Just in case you're having a tiny freak out like I did when I first saw this card. This is not for the rest of the game. It's just while Murmur's on board, he has to be alive and present for this effect to go off. But that said, of course, still pretty scary potential anytime you talk about really significant cost discounts like this. I think especially in wild format, which we don't talk about for reviews much, but a card that seems like I don't touch wild, I don't think about wild, but man, there's got to be some absolutely broken, crazy instant kill stuff possible with Murmur and Wild, especially in combination with various other mana cheat and discounts and so on. But even in standard, you have to imagine there's some wackiness that can ensue on the basis of this card. I imagine there will be instances where this just swings the game so dramatically that it wins you the game, and maybe other instances where this sets up a literal OTK that ends the game. But do note, this has a 6 mana upfront cost, and outside of other cost discount shenanigans, each battle cry is pushing that mana commitment up further and further. So, this might be something that's not good until turn 8, turn 9, turn 10, when you finally can get together all the pieces. Not to mention does, demand a lot of specific cards if you're playing for like a 5-card combo. So anything that's like especially dangerous, especially crazy, it might be slowed down too much, although it is nice perhaps that the card actually kills off the battle cry. Sometimes that makes space for like loops and craziness, probably again more relevant in wild format, but that might not actually be a downside necessarily. It might be an upside. And Shaman does have some battle cry stuff to go crazy with this too, potentially stuff like Shutter Block came along, and I don't actually know any absurd combos that exist right now. Even I think reviewing some of the early discussion on this card, I don't see anybody like cracking the case necessarily on making this nuts, but it's always one of those cards with scary latent potential, even if it's not now. Couple expansions, so now something comes out, some insane battle cry, something gets added to the core set, and it's like, oh god, Murmur is absolutely nuts now. So a card you definitely want to keep an eye on, I think, with a ton of potential. Moving on to Shaman's other legendary. This one's pretty dang cool. This is Farseer Nobundo. He's a 5 mana 6/4 Draenei with Death Rattle. Open the Galaxy's Lens. It absorbs the power of the next spell you cast. And this is a location that pops up on board. It has Spell Burst, absorb the spell's power. So basically you cast the spell. That spell is now like attached to the Galaxy's Lens. It goes off normally, but the Galaxy's Lens remembers that spell. And then anytime you hit the Galaxy's Lens, it's going to recast that spell for you. And I guess it even has like some smart targeting and stuff too. Like you can actually target with it sounds like, which is pretty cool and unexpected for me. So basically the idea, get a crazy big spell into your Galaxy's Lens, and then you get to use that 2 more times because this has 2 durability. And just a quick note, we are going to see some pretty interesting spells that might sync up well with this. For instance, Nebula, big 9 mana spell for Shaman. Discover 2 8-cost minions to summon with Taunt and Elusive. Like obviously getting to replay those for free. At some future point. Obviously, I had to spend 5 on Farseer itself, but at some future point, even Meteor Storm. This is more asteroid synergies, which we saw in the neutral set long ago, you may remember. But like even this, pretty good. And there's a handful of other Shaman spells that are big and nice in the current pool as well. Even some at like 6 or 7 mana, they could come online pretty shortly thereafter on the Farseer. And you can use the location immediately as well, it looks like. So it's like you can kind of go 2 for 1 the same turn you play that. Now it is a Death Rattle, and Nobundo himself is super slow, right? You're just playing down a 5-cost body. In some worlds, the opponent might not even kill this for you. It's like they got a board of 3/3s, and you're like, ah, crap, I can't even kill off my Farseer. So this is definitely a card with a pretty slow and pretty delayed payoff, and does encourage, you know, bigger, slower spells as well to really maximize the upside on this location. So that is going to restrict it to certain game plans, like, and it just doesn't fit necessarily into a lot of decks. But I would keep an eye on it for things like Reno decks in particular. And I mean, there is definitely a lot of upside, just with some delay and like kind of some conditionality built in from a deck building standpoint as well. Now in the big spell package, I'll just take a look at this guy real quick. Cosmonaut, 7 mana, 5/5 Draenei. Discover a spell from your deck, reduce its cost by 5. So this is kind of big spell synergy, but man, it's a 7 mana card, right? It's just really, really expensive. And again, pushing a game plan back really, really far. So it's going to take a specific meta and a crazy greedy Shaman deck to make all of this stuff worth it. And even like, you know, a 9-cost spell, it's still only going to cost 4. You can't even play it the same turn as the Cosmonaut without other like cost discounts and cheese. So it's like, man, compared to what Mage is doing, it's like, forget it, dude. This is so much slower than the big spell Mage stuff. So I don't really see how this holds up or competes. Oh, we should talk about Nebula itself. I forgot. As for Nebula itself, discover 2 8-cost minions to summon with Taunt and Elusive. Like, it is nice that they're defensive and annoying to deal with, and we know 8 cost is generally a pretty good pool of minions to work from as well. But it's just really that 9 cost on this one that's, again, going to hold it back. And the big spell stuff we're seeing here doesn't really help it get down fast enough to make it worth it. Again, compared to big spell Mage, this just does not seem to compete or keep up. Although, I love this spell. I love how the artwork, by the way, is not trying to do anything crazy here. It's literally just a subtle picture of a nebula. You can maybe kind of see some hooded figures in there, but it's like, it's very nice and subtle. I like that. We got some other spells for Shaman here before getting into that Asteroid package. First Contact, 1 mana spell. Summon 2 random 1-cost minions and Overload 1. So a little way to get some stuff on board. You know, the Overload is definitely a price to pay on this card in a like regular deck, but I wonder if that doesn't give it some upside for Overload specific kind of packages that could come along, and this becomes an Overload enabler as opposed to that Overload being a downside. I think that's what it would really take for this card to be exciting. I think, you know, a strong turn 1 that's iffy, because you can get some significant low rolls, is maybe not worth giving up your turn 2 for something like this, unless you're realizing some kind of Overload benefit on top of it. So it probably needs that help. So moving on over to that Asteroid package we talked about. Remember we saw a neutral card that also teased Asteroids. We can actually pull that up real quick here. I promise I know what I'm doing, and I'm very good at this, and I plan this. The Moonstone Mauler. This guy, remember, shuffle 3 Asteroids in your deck. We talked about how this might support a class package. Of course, I actually knew that because all the cards got leaked, but I didn't want to say it outright. But here we are, the Meteor Storm, more Asteroids, right? And the Asteroid is a 1 mana spell, deal 2 damage to a random enemy. That's either face or minions. But with the Meteor Storm, you know, clearing up boards, maybe that creates some opportunities to hit face because you got some reliable ways to empty your opponent's board, maybe draw some cards afterwards. Your Asteroids start hitting face. This looks great, by the way, right? Like, it's just a really solid board clear. It does hit your own stuff, which sometimes a downside. We've seen historically that doesn't usually hurt these cards. We just like the board clear. And then the Asteroids, you know, that's 10 damage right there. That's really nice for later. Or is it actually more than 10 damage thanks to other Shaman cards like this one, the Bolide Behemoth. Bolide? I don't know what that word is. 4 mana, 3/6 elemental battlecry. Your Asteroids deal 1 more damage this game, which that's already a pretty nice boost. But remember, you can duplicate this. We got Shutter Block. There's ways to play 2 or more of these. So actually, you can get your Asteroids up to doing pretty significant damage output thanks to this. If they're suddenly hitting for 4 or 5, it doesn't take many to wipe out your opponent's board just over and over again, and occasionally chip down their health total as well. That's going to be the kind of thing that definitely grinds out opponents over time. And of course with Spellburst here too, you even get some in your deck. So pretty nice upside on this guy. We've also got some other support for this package as well. The Ultraviolet Breaker, 3 mana, 3/2 elemental battlecry, deal 3 damage to an enemy minion, shuffle 3 Asteroids into your deck. I like that this is not sacrificing tempo. You get to keep up a little bit on board, deal with your opponent's thing. 3 damage is a great number for that, even on turn 3. And again, more Asteroids is fantastic. So that card looks really, really good to me. And then this card is not oh, we got no, not that guy. We got one more. Here it is. Not technically a synergy, but maybe kind of. Discover a different spell from your deck. Shuffle 3 copies of it into your deck. I don't really think you want to do that with asteroids, but not impossible. It's a way to get even more asteroids into your deck. I think this card probably exists outside of that, though. I actually like this card a lot. I think this card looks great. Just grabbing cards out of your deck and then getting extra copies of them is nice. This like helps you find something for now, but then also, you know, you pick a great card and you build your deck to have great targets for Triangulate. That's a pretty cool payoff, right? And you don't always draw those 3 copies immediately, but for a deck that's playing at least a little bit long game plan wise, that's just really nice to have key spells added back in your deck, and you can kind of maybe pick your poison based on your matchup too. Like, you know, you have 3 great spells in your deck other than Triangulate, pick which one fits this given game, and you've got a chance there to really improve the quality of your reactionary or value generating or whatever damage based tools that you want to run in your deck. So I think that offers a lot of utility. And then our final Shaman card, I believe we got one more, wasn't it? Yeah, the Planetary Navigator. 3 mana, 3/2, Battlecry. The next Draenei you play costs 2 less, but has Overload 2. And I actually do like this. Number one, it plays really nicely with Farseer Nabundo. He goes down to 3, so you can play this on curve 2/3. That is one card that helps get Nabundo out a little faster. Still think there's some slowness on the Death Rattle actually activating and then maybe finding the right spell to pay off Nabundos. I'm not sure that gets Nabundo over the hump necessarily. Is it Nabundo or Nabundo? We'll never know. But I do just like that this cheats it out, and you know, hopefully that overload is not too punishing, but again, who knows, maybe that overload comes along down the road and helps a card like this out as well. So I don't hate this in theory, but I don't know that Shaman has enough of a like Draenei package commitment to really get there. There's just not that much going on. It's like a few neutral cards, Nabundo and this guy, and that's and the Cosmonaut too, which again kind of helps you cheat this out, but then you got the overload. The whole thing's just sort of weird and delayed. So ultimately, I don't really see the Draenei thing coming together. I think Nabundo has a better chance outside of that almost as a just general use card, but this Draenei package is not that compelling to me. And I don't know that you run, you know, like this just to enable one Draenei in your deck or something, you know. It just seems like a big ask. So ultimately, pretty cool set for Shaman. I think the Asteroid package looks compelling. I think there's a few one-off cards here that look really interesting as well, like Triangulate and Murmur, maybe Nabundo. So pretty cool little set here. So moving on over to Rogue. Rogue got a sick starship here, dude. The Gravitational Displacer is a legendary here. 5 mana, 4/3 starship piece. When this is launched, summon a copy of the starship. So you know, this doesn't do anything on its own, but when this dies and it goes into your starship, when you then launch your starship, you're going to get 2 of that starship, which when we look at the other Rogue cards could be really cool. Discover a starship piece from another class. This is Death Rattle, get a random starship piece from another class. So you start to build out this starship using you know, all the various starship pieces we've seen before. We haven't actually even like reviewed this yet. We'll do it in a minute, but you know, the various starship pieces that have like cool effects. Some of them are more removal based, some more aggressive, etc. But piecing together this kind of crazy starship. You've also got Barrel Roll here. Deal 5 damage to an undamaged character. Costs 1 if you're building a starship. So this is kind of the payoff while building your starship that helps you hopefully keep up and stabilize a little bit. Now, that said, like, it's the coolest starship. It's, in many ways, like, going to have some of the biggest and best starships, especially when you have 2 of them. That's kind of insane. The problem is, it is the most inconsistent starship. You don't really know what kind of game plan it's going to encourage. It is also by far the slowest starship, because remember, you got to play this 2-drop, right? It dies, you get a starship piece. You got to play the starship piece, and then it has to die. And a lot of these, like, this is actually not a good example. It's kind of a decent reactive sort of thing. But a lot of these are just like fodder. You have to just throw in and let them die. They're not compelling plays on their own. Usually they're mediocre at best plays. So, you know, you're spending all this mana to get to the mana that you have to spend again to finally get to the payoff, right? And you might need 2 or 3 to even make a starship that kind of makes sense and does something cool and big and swingy. Not to mention, like, this one at 5 mana is dreadfully slow. It's a 4/3 for 5. So if you actually want that copy, you just have to be super greedy. So look, this is by far the most fun starship package, but I think it's really bad. I don't think this is going to be workable at all. I think you just have to commit way too much to make this worth it, and you're just going to be so far behind by the time any of this stuff happens. So let's look at the other side of Rogue, the combo deck side, kicking it off with this legendary. This guy looks really cool. I love this artwork. It's awesome. And that's where it stops for me with this card. It is a 4-mana 4/4 demon. Undamaged minions take double damage. Combo, get a backstab, which, man, that's just not very good. It's a 4-mana 4/4 that deals 4 and, like, kind of enables, you know, other removal to be better. You know, play a Fan of Knives or a backstab or with it or whatever, another one. That's kind of cool. Like, I want to be clear, there's nothing wrong with this. It's like there will be many instances where that feels totally fine to play, and I do actually think this will get played in some decks because of that, especially because, as we're going to see, there's a bit of a combo package here. We're going to get some, like, combo discounts and payoffs. It's probably just gonna get included. At the same time, my God, is this boring? My God, does this not feel like a legendary? It's just not interesting or exciting or dramatic or cool. It's just so flat to me. So I don't know, man. This is actually probably technically a 3-star card, but I'm gonna give it 2 stars just to punish it for being so boring. In other words, like, it probably does get run, but I don't think anybody's pumped about it. So this is some of the other combo stuff. Lucky Comet, discover a combo minion. The next one you play triggers its combo twice, which, okay, that's, you know, you get 2 backstabs, man. Like, that's 2 4 damage removals, which sounds great, but then remember, you did kind of, I don't know, you did kind of spend 2. I mean, I guess you got some value as well. I do like Space Rock Collector. I think this is pretty sweet. 1 mana 2/1 battle cry. Your next combo card costs 1 less. This is just a nice little thing to kind of weave in, set up some bigger plays for later, so that's pretty cool. The Eridar Skulker, this one's kind of intriguing to me. 2 mana 1/3 demon, combo and spell burst, gain +2 attack and stealth. So, you know, this could quickly become kind of a 5 damage threat that's hard to remove and deal with thanks to that stealth. That said, at the same time, we've had these kind of, like, high attack stealth early game minions before, and they just weren't that threatening. Like, ultimately, there's just a lot of AoE that cleans these up, and not that much damage. You're better off just building, like, an aggressive Pirate Port or whatever. Pressure points deal 3 damage from minion, reduce the cost of combo cards in your hand by 1. So this is, like, the linchpin power card for this kind of package, right? Like, this lets you hopefully deal with something on board, buy yourself a brief moment of reprieve, get a significant combo discount, and then, you know, you create some pop-off turns, maybe reactive stuff with Telegath. We should actually pull up the rest of the Rogue combo set, because there are some synergy things to talk about, and, you know, you want to see what you're actually discounting here. So give me 1 second as we pull this up here. So here's the Rogue combo set, sort of. There's, okay, please cooperate. Why is this, what is happening? Here we go. Here is the Rogue combo set, right? Some of these you've already seen, like, you know, little stuff like, oh, manager's pretty great, eviscerate's just some damage, you know. There could be, like, some coin support. Bargain Bin Buccaneer can do some pretty cheesy stuff, as we see with the new spell burst guy. You know, there are definitely good combo card payoffs and literal synergy pieces too, like Rhyme Spinner, gain +1/+1 for each other combo card you've played this game. So you know, discount this, play a bunch, make it big. You create some great moments. We know Elven Minstrel's a classic. Dubious Purchase actually can be pretty cool to discount and get some cheap draws. So I do actually like the pressure point combo setup with pressure points and Space Rock Collector. I think Talgath goes in it. I think Lucky Comet's probably fine in it. I do not think Eridor Skulker goes in it, though. So it's like, just this card's so flat, but I think the combo stuff's a nice utility for Rogue. Now let's talk about Quasar, because this card has been hotly debated over the last couple days from what I've seen. I actually think this card is great. I think this is potentially a game-breaking kind of card. This is one of those cards that makes me very nervous. 6 mana, shuffle your hand into your deck, reduce the cost of cards in your deck by 3. So normally you'd look at that and say, well, that's terrible. I have no cards. I had this big old hand of cards and it's gone. I'm so sad. But listen, if you stack a deck with lots of card draw and specifically things that cost 3 or less, my God, can this create some absolutely crazy chains as soon as you have any card draw loaded up ahead of time on board, which we actually saw Rogue get the completely insane perfect card for this. Let me find it. Where is it? The Knick-Knack Shack, right? Load up a Knick-Knack Shack at any point, leave it sitting there, chill on it, you know, like, yeah, you spent 3, but whatever. On turn 6, you Quasar, you hit Knick-Knack Shack. If you build your deck right, you know you're playing the next card, right? And it might be drawing you a card. Then you get to hit Knick-Knack Shack again. You know you're playing the card. You can create a chain of like 4 instant draws that help you recover any of the tempo you lost, because you've already now netted, you know, up to 12 mana and discounts on your 6 mana turn. Those cards might also draw cards or cycle you into more stuff. And then you just create this chain where you could play 20 cards. You can draw through your entire deck if the deck is constructed and able to be constructed in a way that just chains through everything. And then, you know, pay off with some big draw giants or whatever. To me, this looks terrifying. It's not necessarily an easy thing to set up. It's not necessarily an easy thing to build a deck around. It may not even be a thing that you can solve in regards to a deck right now. I didn't even talk about like quick pick as well. There's a weapon you can load up that can draw you cards to create a chain off Quasar as well. I don't know, man. I just get really nervous with this. Like as soon as you see a rogue get to turn 6, is this just an instant I win button where they just like play 20 cards and overwhelm you and generate absurd value and, you know, absurd damage, card draw, and just cycle through their entire deck or whatever. I'm very nervous that that's what happens with this one. So I am actually probably going to give this card 5 stars, which is not what I've seen a lot of people say. Because, you know, yes, it's service level, very bad. In Rogue, specifically, I'm very scared. All right, so then our final class, we missed on the reviews here, which I made a nice thumbnail for this and everything before I figured out about the whole weird advertising thing. Where'd my cool, beautiful thumbnail go? Look at this. No one's ever gonna see this, dude. This guy's face popping out over here. No one's ever gonna see it until right now. This is now gonna be part 11 with a different Paladin thumbnail. Anyway, this is Deirdre Rebel Captain, 4 mana, 5/4 Draenei with Rush. I do like that that's a 5/4 with Rush. That's really nice for this. And Battlecry, shuffle all 8 crewmates into your deck. Death Rattle, draw 1. Now the crewmates are, we're going to see more cards that support crewmates. These are basically all 4 mana 4/4s that have one of the keywords. You know, we've had all these various keyword cards, you know, Taunt, Lifesteal, Rush, whatever. There's 8 of the keywords, you know, as we know. And they have this battle cry. Each of them has this battle cry. Summon every adjoining crewmate. And what adjoining means is if these are next to each other in hand, then it will also summon the one next to it. So if you have 5 of these in hand, you play one of them, the other 4, as long as they're all touching, are going to get pulled into play as well. So if you can manipulate your hand into a space where everything is connected, like, man, spend 4 mana, get like a giant pile of bodies. As long as you get bodies, and you know, some are gonna have Rush, some are gonna have Taunt, Divine Shield, etc. Useful keywords as well. So this is one way you're gonna get crewmates. I actually, in some ways, think it's like the least compelling way to get crewmates. Let's look at the other crewmate cards here. We also have the Voronoi Recruiter. I take it back. This is the worst way to get crewmates. A 2 mana 1/3 Draenei. At the end of your turn, get a 4/4 crewmate with a random bonus effect. So You know, not a good body on this. Kind of a delayed payoff on the crewmates, and probably only ever gets you one. That kind of sucks, I think. I don't know if you even need that, but this looks good. Headhunt, deal 2 damage, you get a 4/4 crewmate. So another way to get a crewmate, and this is so like nice and flexible too. It's kind of cool that you can maybe choose when to use this at an opportune moment so things line up better. That won't always work. I think it'll be easier to kind of play things out from in between your crewmates than trying to play them into the right spot, but you know, still might be some moments. Emergency meeting, definitely Among Us reference, which is great. 2-mana spell, get 2 4/4 crewmates, put a random demon that costs 3 or less between them. So you know, if you want to benefit from those 2 crewmates, you're gonna have to play out that random demon, which that kind of sucks. Like the demon itself, you don't really want to spend 3 on that demon, but it might be okay to just get 1 crewmate. That's it. I don't know. You're spending 2 mana, so this one's also kind of clunky, to be honest. If I'm being like totally transparent, I only really love Headhunt, and I think Deirdre's okay. You know, because she's a 5/4 with Rush, like that gives her a pass basically, and you do get to, you know, draw a crewmate, but she also kind of makes your deck worse. Like, you don't really love the crewmates until you have all of the crewmates, and like shuffling crewmates in, you're gonna draw those. They don't have like cast when drawn or something, obviously. So that is taking up a draw. So it's like, what portion of your deck is crewmates? How often are you actually joining them? And when does the payoff happen if, you know, you're not drawing 4 in a row or whatever? And it still would sometimes take a lot of turns. Obviously, card draw can hasten that. But in essence, a little weird. Now, we did also see Eldritch Being, a 1-mana 1/3 with Outcast and Spellburst. Shuffle your hand, which doesn't mean shuffle it into your deck. It means literally reorder your hand, like into random positions. So if you have weird, awkward positions, you want to get that demon out of the way or whatever, this can maybe help you get some crewmates together. Okay, again, like, yeah, I got to run a card in my deck to do that. And it's cool that you get 2 tries on it, but it's still kind of awkward. So, man, I don't know, like, the payoff on this is enormous when it lines up. You know, spend 4 and get like, you know, 20/20 in stats. But this card sucks to play. This card sucks to play. I think Headhunt's okay to play for sure. This card kind of sucks to play. Deirdre's okay to play, but it makes your deck worse. In essence, I don't really think it does what it needs to be a competitive kind of plan. And the thing is, it kind of has to be a plan too, because you don't run Deirdre in other decks that don't focus on this as a win condition of sorts. It's not enough to like really make it the entire deck, but at the same time, it makes the rest of the deck a little worse unless this hits. So I think it's just going to be awkward more than good, and finding good crewmate alignments is going to be really challenging. So moving on to the Starship side of things, we teased these earlier. Felfuse Battery, after this attacks, give your other minions +1 attack. Starship Piece, 2 mana, 2/3. So if you have a board full of stuff, or, you know, we have these Charge Pirates available as well, you can set up, you know, to summon your pirates next turn, and then also summon the Starship that turn. And as we'll see here, you can give the Starship Rush and Wind Fury, so you can kind of set up to buff a big board of charging pirates. That's actually pretty sweet with Rush and Wind Fury. Also just makes the Starship itself a little bit more reactive. You know, it's only kind of a 4/7 based on these 2 things, but we know we've got the neutral Starship pieces as well. So I think that's actually pretty cool and kind of plays well to Demon Hunter. The thing is, like, that's, you know, having, say, 3 pirates summoned instantly or whatever, even 4 or 5, you know, this is only going to give, you know, +2 attack to those pirates based on the base Rush and Wind Fury attacks, assuming you even have 2 things to attack into. It's not like crazy lethal damage or anything, right? It's not enough of a finisher in its own right. You still have to get a lot of chip damage and you know, be a more aggressive package. But I will say it's kind of hard to be an aggressive deck when you're playing a 2 mana 2/3 and a 3 mana 2/4 that probably just trades off and dies, you know. So and the other Starship pieces, like the neutral ones, are a little bit more defensive. So in some ways, like, how does the battery actually pay off significantly? It might be hard to find moments where you feel like it's worth it. Maybe it's even just like taking trades into stuff, stabilizing behind it. So the one win in this package is Warp Drive, because this thing looks insane. It's like mini Skull of Gul'dan. 3 mana Fel spell, draw 2 cards. If you're building a starship, they cost 2 less. So like this looks like a very generically powerful sort of card. This is great card draw. Spend 3, discount 4. But again, it does, it demands mana that's not aggroing people down. So then you again start to question the Fel Fuse Battery's upside, and it's like, okay, maybe this is more of a really late game finisher. Maybe I'm hoping the starship lives for a turn, and it's actually just, also just a Wind Fury threat in its own right. But getting all of this to sync up into a deck package is tough. I'm going to be like, just say generally, I think all of the starships are feeling more and more awkward to me as I start to think about them. Because you only have, a limited number of pieces in your deck. If you don't hit them on time, it's trouble. If you, miss a key one, like 2 Fel Fuse Batteries, but no Shatter Shard Turret, that's trouble, right? Like your starship's going to be in a really tough place. Just playing them out is expensive and slow. That puts you in a tough space. In every starship case, I'm just wondering, like, man, are these going to be too late to matter? Like, is it coming online too late? So this one's perhaps better than most because of the Rush and Wind Fury giving it some immediacy, but still a stress point for me. And then finally, Infiltrate for Demon Hunter here. And I guess maybe finally for this review, 3 mana spell, choose a minion, deal 3 damage to all other minions. Yeah, this is kind of nice. Like, obviously the ideal here is like, hey, I've got a minion on board. I want to wipe up the rest of your minions on board. I target my thing. It's safe. Your things die. Unfortunately, that's not always going to be easy to do. Sometimes you're going to want to wipe the opponent's board, and you have to choose one of their minions, which is unfortunately going to survive. Now, the nice thing is, like, maybe you choose their 1/1 and you wipe out their 3/3s or something. So still some utility, but it just doesn't feel like the cleanest board clear necessarily when there's a lot of other clean board clears available out there. So all in all, this Demon Hunter set leaves me feeling a little bit hesitant, let's say. Oh, we should also go back and look at the first Demon Hunter card revealed as a reminder, just in case you haven't seen that in a minute. Zortoth, Breaker of Stars. This is another way to potentially enable the Eldritch Being to kind of shuffle the hand so that the stars collide. I don't think that alone makes it worth it. Also kind of technically the crewmates like, oh, I open up a bunch of space so that the Zortoth goes off. Very like kind of late game scenario. I think this is much better, as we talked about in its initial reveal, as kind of my hand is empty, not like I'm trying to actually play things out from between the stars. So I still like this card as a general use card in Demon Hunter. I do not really love much else in the Demon Hunter package. So I guess we're done with the discussion. Let's give these cards ratings from 1 to 5 stars in a rapid fire rating session that will not be remotely accurate. Orbital Satellite's a 4-star card. Lumia is a 5-star card. Libram of Faith is a 3-star card. Interstellar Researchers 3 stars. Urel Beacon of Hope is a 3-star card. Libram of Divinity is 3 stars. Libram of Clarity is 3 stars. I'm sure you're detecting a Libram, the Libram consistency here. Interstellar Wayfarer is a 3-star card. Interstellar Star Slicer is a 3-star card. Celestial Aura is a 2-star card. Planetary Navigator is a 3-star card. Nebula is a 3-star card. Cosmonaut's a 2-star card. First Contact is a 3-star card. Ultraviolet Breaker is a 4-star card. Bolide Behemoth is 4 stars. Meteor Storm is 4 stars. Triangulate is 4 stars. Farseer Nabundo is 3 stars. Murmur is 4 stars, but very scary and wild. Gravitational Displacer is 2 stars. Starship Schematic is 2 stars. Scrounging Shipwright is 2 stars. Lucky Comet is 4 stars. Space Rock Collector's 4 stars. Barrel Roll is 3 stars. It's like a little better than the other starship pieces. Maybe it's 2 because they kind of demand each other. Talgath is 2 stars. Quasar is 5 stars. I'm scared of this one. Eridar Skulker is 2 stars. Pressure Points is 4 stars. Infiltrate is 2 stars. Warp Drive 3 stars. It's independently amazing, but it demands starships. Shatter Shard Turret is 3 stars. Fel Fused Battery is 3 stars. Eldritch Being is 2 stars. Emergency Meeting is 2 stars. Headhunt is 3 stars. Voronai Recruiter is 2 stars. Deirdre Rebel Captain is 2 stars. she just makes your deck worse. And that's it. We already did these. Cool. We already got Druid. Nice, guys. Yeah, a couple really scary standout kind of things there. The Rogue package looks really fun on the Starship side, if not very good. Asteroids look pretty crazy. Lumia looks just amazing, both literally from the artwork standpoint and as a card. I like this one a lot. I'm excited to play Lumia. And as I mentioned earlier, I think I'll be playing Lumia. I think we're going to have some videos coming very, very soon, because I think the ad blockade, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, might be fixed. I can't guarantee 100%, but so far right now, it is seemingly working. So I guess I'll see you tomorrow, next day. We'll probably end up doing a couple anyway, just to test it. But at the very least, expect a couple gameplay videos, and hopefully a lot more if things do indeed take a turn for the better on all that ad blockade stuff, as mentioned. So anyway, thanks for joining me. Share your thoughts on these cards down below. Sorry for the unusual final review and missed few days as I was dealing with all of that, but love you all a ton for hanging out. Thank you much, and until next time, game on.